Hi everybody, it's Dr. Chabot, and in this video we're going to introduce the concept of the magnetic force and the magnetic field. So the electric force existed between any charges. They could be stationary, they could be moving. The electric force exists. The magnetic force is going to not exist between all charges, but instead it exists between charges because of their motion. So what we'll say here is that moving charges with a velocity v can experience, not all do, and we'll see some details of this, can experience a magnetic force. And we're going to use the symbol capital B for the magnetic force. So I'm going to call that magnetic force F sub B. So moving charges, now we have to have a velocity associated with our charges. So say a small current wire, for example, can experience magnetic forces. And then in addition to that, what we're going to see is that moving charges, again, moving, are going to be the ones that create the magnetic field. And the magnetic fields are what we're going to call capital B. So just like we had the electric force, and then we just talked about the electric field, which can exist in a space, right? The magnetic field can exist in a space around the source moving charge, right? So we can then describe the space around it just like we used electric fields to do that. One example of this observation, and an example of this observation of this force that is different classically, non-relativistically from the electric force. An example would be if I had a current I1 and then I have another current carrying wire near it, I2. These are moving charges, right? Current is moving charge. And so what we end up seeing in this case is that these actually experience a force on the wire that is going to be making it actually be attracted to the other. For this particular example, that's not generally always an attractive force. So if I had, for example, I1 is down and I2 is up, in this case, the force is actually going to be opposite on I1. So we'll work through the geometries of all that, but fundamentally the magnetic force is one that's going to exist between small current segments that have moving charges in them, or that exists because of the motion of charge. So what we can do then is actually start by talking about this magnetic field. So recall that we had that the electric field was defined by saying that we took the electric force and then we divided out the thing that it depended on, the charge dependence that the force was depending on. And so then that way it could exist in a space, right? Could exist in the whole space around some source charge that was creating the field. So we are going to do the same thing with the magnetic field, where we're going to define a magnetic field, and we'll just work with magnitudes to start to make a nice analogy. And we're going to take the magnetic force, and now we're going to divide out what it depends on. And it does depend on a test charge, which I'm just going to call Q naught. But it also depends on the relative motion of the charge, so on the velocity of the charge. And it also depends on the direction of that velocity. So it turns out that it depends on the perpendicular component of the velocity that is perpendicular to the magnetic field. So that's the component of the velocity perpendicular to the magnetic field. And so we then have, and this is all just magnitudes, I'll write out the full equation in a second, but we have this idea that we're basically taking something just like we did with the electric field, where we can describe the space around some source charges, in this case moving charges that are creating a magnetic field. There is then, that magnetic field is defined by the forces it would create on charges that are moving with some velocity v that is perpendicular to that field. So we do a similar thing here, and so then we can come up with the magnetic force. So the magnetic force, more commonly, is how this is going to be written out. And so the magnetic force on a charge, the F sub B, is going to be equal to this Q, the charge that is moving, so the moving charge that's experiencing the field, so that's like our test charge. And then I'm going to write it as QV, the vector V, cross B. So this is our cross product. So that's going to be where our right-hand rule comes in. So before we go any further, let's just take a side note on the right-hand rule. Let's practice the right-hand rule. And we're gonna have a couple right-hand rules. So I'm gonna call this the right-hand rule for cross products. Now you might already have one that works for you, and so I just encourage you to use that. But if you're iffy or you don't really recall the right-hand rule, I'm going to give some examples. And so the first example, if these are my vectors that we're going to be looking at, I have vector A and I have vector B, and I'm going to use my right hand, hence the name right-hand rule. And the first thing I want to do is I want to take, as if I have arrows pointing along the tips towards the edge of my fingernails, right? I want to pretend I have arrows there, and I want to line my fingers up with A. So see right now how my fingers are lined up with A. And then I want to turn my palm such that I want to keep my hand out like this, sort of with the thumb straight out. So I want to then line my fingers up with A, and I want to turn my palm so that it basically has B coming out of it. So then I can do A cross B, and my fingers then turn and can line up with B. Notice that if I tried to do this, I'd have to go more than 180 degrees. That's not allowed. I want to always just go, though it's a rule, as part of the rule, I want to go less than 180 degrees. So I can easily go A cross B. Notice my thumb is now into the page. So this tells me that A cross B, in this case, is going to be into the page. So A cross B is into the page. From that one, and you can practice that one yourself. I have another one that we will practice as well. So this is the next one, where I have now used the symbol of a little dot. It's like the tip of an arrow coming out of the page that's showing us the A is out of the page. So I have A out of the page. So I have to take my hand and I want to point my fingers as if they're coming out of the page. So I have one of these options here. And then I want to twist my hand so that it's as if B is coming out of my palm. So I can go out of the page, cross up. So B is up. My thumb is then over towards my right. So A cross B is going to point in that direction. So A cross B points along the direction of my thumb there. Okay, note that if you use this version of it, very often what you're doing as you're remembering it is the same as this, where you're doing first vector is your index vector. And then as you turn your fingers, then this middle finger is your second vector. So A cross B equals your result. Your thumb is your result. And then that works as well. Okay, so we practiced the rule for the cross product, and so this is basically the same idea for the magnetic force and the magnetic field. So let's do a couple examples with this one. If I say here, for example, let's say that I have B is straight up, so let's say I have a magnetic field that is pointed towards the top of the page, and then let me put a positive charge in this field and have it move to the right. So I'm going to do my right-hand rule of V cross B. And in this case here, I get my QB, my magnetic force, is going to be equal to QV cross B. And I'm going to get that to be out of the page. The magnitude of the magnetic force I could find just from the magnitude of QVB times, in this case, because they're perpendicular, the sine of 90, which is just 1. Let's say I have the same situation, but now I have a negative charge, but it's also moving to the right. So if I have a negative charge moving to the right, I'm going to have to switch the result. So I'll flip my result. So I'm going to flip my result of the right-hand rule. And so I would do V cross B, and I would get out of the page. So out of the page, I'm going to flip that, and then I end up getting a magnetic force that would be into the page. So the plus or minus charge changes whether or not you use the result directly from the right-hand rule or whether you flip it. We're also going to use some notation where we start to draw, say, X's when things are into the page. So let's say, for example, as another example, let's say that I have B here. The X's are like the tail of the arrow going into the page. And now let me use a positive charge, and let's just make the positive charge go that same direction. So you can practice your right-hand rule that V cross into the page. Here, we're going to get a magnetic force that is going to be upwards towards the top of the page. You can see why in the original definition of magnetic field that we did have to take into account if the magnetic field and the velocity had any perpendicular components. So as a very important last example, let's say that my magnetic field is up. And then let me take my positive charge and let me make it move parallel to the field. So if we look at this, we can see that V is parallel to B. And so V cross B equals 0 because there's no perpendicular components. There's no V perpendicular, so the magnetic force is equal to 0. So the magnetic force being 0 then comes directly from the fact that the direction of the velocity didn't have a V perpendicular relative to the magnetic field. And so then that's what makes the magnetic force a little bit trickier than the standalone electric force, where you just had a direction either with the field or against the field. So the magnetic field, the force isn't in the direction of the field. And in fact, V, the force, and the magnetic field exist in 3D space. So that's going to be kind of our picture that we have to always be thinking three-dimensionally in order to see this, right? Our force, in fact, is perpendicular to both the velocity and the magnetic field. Okay, so this is fundamentally the magnetic force. In the next video, we'll see that the sort of motion it causes, because it's a perpendicular force to the velocity, will be circular. But I did want to just make a side note, sort of like maybe an end note of this, which is that magnetism is a lot more complicated than it seems. The classical understanding of magnetism works well, but generally only when we look at it through a lens of special relativity. So a real understanding, like a deep understanding of magnetism, requires not just this kind of picture, a classical understanding of the force. It requires not only this idea of what we're covering here, which I'll call classical electrodynamics, looking at that viewing it through a lens of special relativity. I have an optional video in a later module that can give you some insights into this. It's really quite fascinating. But ultimately, magnetic forces are actually relativistic effects of electric forces. So basically, magnetism is what you need so that electric forces transform correctly between moving frames. I think one nutshell that I might let you take away is that electric and magnetic fields are not actually separate things. The deeper that you go into physics and truly understanding the laws of our world, they mix together. So electric fields mix with magnetic fields, just like space and time mix. So space and time mix, energy and momentum mix when we start doing relativity. And then we have electric and magnetic fields mix or maybe combine even into the electromagnetic field. And its relativistic effects, hence the relative motion of these charges that matters, that actually is really at the heart of magnetism. And that in order to understand some of the fundamental laws of physics and how they apply to this, for example, Newton's third law, actually gets a little clunky when you start looking at it without relativity involved. And that's because we actually have to consider the momentum of the fields and a lot of really cool, fun physics that's beyond this introductory level. But I did want to just put it out there that magnetism as a force is not really at its core fundamentally a different force than the electric force, and that it's just an electromagnetic field that get mixed. It's kind of like this one big idea that gets mixed together, and moving between different frames, different reference frames, is where the properties of magnetism arise. And so I'll finish by putting it all together with the Lorentz force law. And this is one that that we understand in our kind of university physics 2 way, which is that the total force, the electromagnetic force on something, will be Q times E, the electric field it's in, plus QV cross B. So this would be our electric contribution. That's the electric field contribution. And then here, that's going to be our magnetic field contribution. So even though at its core, there's a lot more going on than meets the eye. Just like everything in physics, even going all the way back to something like the Bohr model of the atom, if a model is good and it can explain reasonable results on the speed scales and length scales that you're looking at, then that's a perfectly valid thing to learn. And so we're going to stick to working with like non-relativistic magnetism from a classical perspective, where we're simply looking at the magnetic field as its own entity that is creating these forces on moving charges.